What's something you could have gone without knowing? My mom innocently pointed out to me yesterday that my birthday is exactly 9 months after hers. I don't think I ever needed to realize that. The average blue whale ejaculation is the same amount of gallons that the average hot tub can hold. My uncle died in a motorcycle accident a few years back. He died slowly on the asphalt, scared, in extreme pain. Most of my family doesn't know that. I learned recently that my unborn son is already getting erections inside me. I could have been okay never knowing that. That my parents made sex tapes, recorded over the sandlet. Still can't watch that movie. I probably would be a lot more mentally stable if I never found out my family tree is filled with incest. Guy killed 2 teenage boys so he can impersonate a cop and tell the parents of their son's death and see them break down at receiving the news. One of my parents cheated on the other. I'm not angry at the cheater because the other parent isn't a good spouse, but I still would have preferred not knowing. And they will never know that I know. That my grandma has a toy in her closet. Thanks mom. My cousin died when he was riding passenger with his wasted stepdad. Cops told us he didn't die instantly. He burned to death and probably felt most of it. That there's a theory that the Challenger astronauts survived the initial explosion, but died cause of the long ass fall. Edit, I meant the impact from the fall. That there's some guy out there on this earth who fricked a coconut filled with maggots. That my mom has a delicious pussy according to her ex. My mom came to visit me for a bit before having to pick up my sister from the airport. She came to my apartment exhausted after what I assumed was a busy day of work. She passed out on the couch. Her phone buzzed with a text notification, and I leaned over to read expecting it was a notice that her plane had landed. Yeah, mom. I never told her I read that text. I was going through my mom's bedroom after she died and found her vibrator stashed close to the bed. I started laughing hysterically because it was the same one I have an, weird emotional swings from grief. As I sat there holding it and laughing, my brother walked in. His reaction? Back massager. My grandpa, who is 90, openly talking about his sex life with his lady friend. Definitely cold lived without this. So, this story is one that I rarely let out of the darkness. Please enjoy. At 18 I was engaged to an older man. Things weren't going quite well and my mother, being concerned, invited me over for dinner to try and prize the information on the 30 minutes ride back home. Now, being raised in an LDS family, there were some things we just never discussed. Sex being one of them. Driving on the highway at 70 miles per hour. My beloved mother starts asking if the issue has anything to do with his performance in the bedroom. I'm stunned speechless, giving her the opportunity to gift me with these gems in her way of trying to get me to share. 1. My dad has a large peen. 2. They have not had sex in a few years. 3. She walked into the unlocked bathroom and caught a glimpse of my brother coming out the shower and his peen was bigger than my dad's. At this point, watching the scenery fly past in a blur, I honestly considered jumping out of the car. I'm still not sure if I should be thankful of the self-locking doors, but my life could have continued easily without knowing those bits of information. Edit, after having a shockingly bad day at work, this made me smile. Thanks Reddit. To answer a few comments and messages I got quickly. Yes, we are Latter-day Saints. No, I do not know the accurate measurements of either peen. No, I didn't stay with the older guy. 17 years difference and him being an utter ordeal just didn't work out. Yes, my brother is happily single. No, incest is not a family hobby for us. I saw an episode of Monsters Inside Me where someone was running or biking and had a fly hit their eye. It was something that happened less than a second, but it was enough for the fly to lay some eggs in their eye and almost made them go blind because of that. I could have gone without knowing that because now I'm always scared whenever a fly hits me in the face. That my boss is sleeping with a nearly dead old GM and that's why she never gets in trouble. Whoopi Goldberg has no eyebrows. Anything my friends/family tell me about me ex, what she's doing ECT, don't want to know. Our bones are wet. When I was in grade 9 I went to take your kid to work day. My mom worked at a teaching hospital and she arranged for me to do some cool things like watch a heart surgery and ultrasound. She also arranged for me to check out the morgue because the morticians were too big, muscly, funny guys. I was shown the baby drawer and was told the procedure if there were too many dead babies to hold in the small drawers at the end of the tour. Your sweet innocent grandma probably choked on a cock at a moment in her life. If you break your wrist and arm in a particular way, it'll hurt really badly for 4 solid years. That I'll never come up with a groundbreaking askreddit question as much as I might try. My disease is regressive and will one day disable me, maybe worse. We have zero defense against asteroid impact, at least we can spot them before we die. About 80% of the things that send me to urbandictionary.com. Recently someone posted a video of man sucking a woman's foot whilst driving. I never needed to know that was a thing. What it's like to sneeze while on the first day of your period. There's a duck out there watching me. Most of your student loan debt goes to things completely unrelated to what you learn or the people teaching you. You're essentially funding a bureaucratic hierarchy of program managers. I'm surprised no one has mentioned Ducky from Land Before Time. That there are people who believe the earth is flat. I've seen my mom's pussy while working on her phone. She asked how to delete multiple photos at once, and I showed her how. Sadly those pics were some of the first ones on there. 2 girls, 1 cup. I wish I had never seen a hip surgery on TV, or any other surgery for that matter. That all milk chocolates approved by the FDA must have less than 60 insect fragments per 100 grams. According to ABC News, there are about 8 insect parts per milk chocolate bar. That my actions stress the hell out of my parents. I'm a student between high school and college on a gap year. Seriously, it makes decisions much harder knowing that if I mess up it hurts more than just me. My grandfather had a bestiality erotica book in his nightstand. A close friend of mine died by stabbing himself in the throat 7 times. Oh, I've got one. My dad once told me in confidence that as a young man, he was driving down the highway getting a BJ from his then girlfriend, not my mom, and suddenly, the driver next time to them noticed and started to stare open-mouthed. That car proceeded to swerve into the oncoming lane, immediately getting pulverized by a semi. My dad told me there were at least 3 people in that car. As far as I know, I'm the only person on earth who knows this story well, and that girl maybe. Worked as a cop. Had a 21-year-old guy ride a motorbike the twisty way to a friend's house. Didn't arrive on time. Dad rings us upset, and we do our investigation. He left on time with a full tank of fuel and his phone pinged the way he told dad he was going. Talked to his friends and we knew he wasn't lying to dad. He'd crashed somewhere. We had a town of 16,000 people and 2 cops on for the night, so we couldn't go look along the 240-kilometer route. Dad and friends drive the route the next day. Found son unfortunately dead. He'd cooked it on a corner and put the bike into a ditch. I felt terrible that there was nothing we could do on the night. Found out he'd taken his helmet off and crawled almost to the road and died in the dark on his own, and maybe wondering if anyone was looking for him. Never met the dad, but contemplated driving the 3 hours to tell him I was sorry I couldn't do more. What it feel like to be in a major car accident. That my ex-girlfriend cheated on me the same night we had celebrated my birthday. We had dinner together, but she had to head home because of an emergency. Apparently she had some Netflix and chill action with some Tinder guy she had been seeing for a while. I paid for the dinner, of course. Also, she told me that I probably was the only one of all her boyfriends who, according to her, deserved to be cheated on, since I was too nice. Caring too much about her. Well, that still hurts. That there are dancing boys in Afghanistan called bachabazi. They are prepubescent boys who are forced into sexual slavery. Gelatin or gelatine is a translucent, colorless, brittle, flavorless food ingredient that is derived from collagen obtained from various animal body parts. That the placebo effect can work in reverse, i.e. make legit medicine not work. As sharp as eel soup, an internet video that shows a Japanese girl inserting a funnel in another girl's ass. The first girl then puts several dozen 1-inch baby eels in the funnel and makes sure they all go into the other's ass. The funnel is then taken out and the second girl starts farting the eels out of her ass. The first girl then eats and sucks on some eels. Dude, gotta watch eel soup. This chick farts out eels. I looked this crap up on a school field trip with my friends. That my ex-girlfriend cheated on me literally for a sweet tea from McDonald's. I read the text messages. All told she was banging 7 other guys, doing sexual stuff with them. She never would with me. I could have lived forever not knowing how worthless I was to her. I wish she would have dumped me like an adult. It's 6 years later, and I just hit 2 years with my current girl who is amazing. And am just now finally starting to relax, and not constantly expect a dagger in my back and heart. Don't cheat people, just leave. Nobody deserves that pain and those mental scars. There was a post about bullies a while back. Apparently this girl killed herself, and the bullies came to the wake and made fun of her dress in the casket. Ted Bundy used to revisit the sites where he dumped his victims' corpses in order to have a sex with the bodies over and over again until they were physically too decomposed to penetrate anymore. That a family friend of my GFS family is a gynecologist, and he had a patient who stuck yams up her bag for some reason, and it had started growing roots. As a hypochondriac, every disease or sickness that ever happened ever. That every time a fly lands on you it pukes. That my sister isn't a horse 30 and my mother visits FetLife. The great filter theory. A coworker gave me an SD card for my new phone. It belonged to his roommate, who happened to be my boss. I load the SD card into my laptop to clear out the memory, and I find all his naked selfies. Worse yet, he was wearing a baseball cap and socks in each one. Being around cockroaches will make you allergic to cockroaches. Cockroaches can and will drink your sweat while you sleep. Cockroaches will cannibalize their young when hungry enough. There is enough cockroach mass in pre-ground coffee to trigger your an allergic reaction if you're allergic to cockroaches. That my ex-GF slept with someone a day after we broke up. She told me yesterday, we broke up 3 days ago. Bummer man. The existence of /r/ in our internet. Very much NSFL, like scrub your internet history, because the NSA might start wondering about you kind of NSFL. The taste of dog poop. Every time you yawn, a ghost puts its peen in your mouth. My dad told me one night after a few too many drinks that my mother, they're not together anymore, was really bad at giving head. We have a close relationship and talk about everything, but I told him he had to draw the line there. Does opening this thread count? I'm kinda regretting it. My cousin was one of the pilots of MH17. When they initially found his body it was strapped to the aeroplane seat, but they didn't recover the body immediately. When the people involved came over to collect the body the next day the corpse was on the ground away from the seat. Valuables gone. I just can't help thinking about how crappy some people are to rob a corpse that died under horrible circumstances. I was the result of a quickie. At least now I have a better gamer tag. The swamps of Dagobah. Dog Meat Festival. I can come around to the fact that people eat dogs. It's the fact that they brutally torture them that messed with me. Specifically the video footage of said torture. That people actually believe the Holocaust didn't happen. Forms of torture in the olden days involved inflicting pain without causing death. Vol the Impaler would sometimes cut holes near the top and base of his victims' spines and impale them on wooden spikes to hang in the sky for days before dying of dehydration. The fact that people perfected non-lethal forms of extreme torture is simply terrifying. My pain threshold sucks. Most of the figs from a classic fig tree contain at least one dead wasp. Marshmallows are made of animal skin. That George Harrison continued to do cocaine and sleep around while he was married to his second wife really undermines his spiritual side and makes John Luck better by comparison. Grandparents were swingers. They gave away one child for not being his. But we tracked her down a few years ago and she looks identical to one of her sisters, while one they kept looks different. I know what color my bones are. I know what a black widow bite feels like. I know what being on fire feels like. When my nephew died unexpectedly, My sister struggled to open the door to his uni flat. Every time she tried to push it open, it would make a solid thunk noise against something. She finally brute forced it open, knocking my nephew's body out of the way. He died curled up by the door, cold and alone. Also, because his body hadn't been found in over 24 hours, and he had been laying face down, he had pressure sores all across his cheek, jaw, and nose. My sister pointed out where they were on her own face. So that really helps me imagine how my lifelong best friend looked after he died. That one has haunted me for almost 2 years. My brother's father, long story, thinks that Lucy Liu was a 30 star and was one of his favorite girls. A snail has over 2,000 teeth. Last time I was in Chicago, I sent a selfie to my dad in front of the Wrigley Field marquee after the World Series win, because he's a big fan. He sent back, "You were conceived 2.5 blocks from there." Disclaimer, this is rather dark. My teenage sibling confessed to me that she had had sexual experiences when she was younger, and I thought, okay, this is weird telling me this, and I don't know why she's so nervous, but I'll try to figure out where and who and how. After some conversation, it turned out she was 8 years old, and it was with our 20-year-old cousin whom we see semi-regularly. He's like 27 and married now. A year later, the cousin made an abrupt visit to our home. I couldn't keep it in and took him and my mom to the living room and told him to confess. He started apologizing and confessing to having touched me as a young child, which I have no memory of. I'm not going to continue the story as that answers the question, and it is going to be lost in the comments anyway. I was born roughly 9 months after my parents' wedding anniversary. I used to love to squeeze balloons in people's faces as a toddler apparently, so my mother told me to stop, because if the balloon pops it can take someone's eye out. I've been afraid of balloons for 20 years. How long the needle is to numb you before a vasectomy. Things about my ex after we broke up. Sorry for the downer. The way my mom looks completely naked doing a yoga pose on her lofted bed so her creepy hairy junk was at my eye level. I was 10. My eyes still hurt. Murder of Junko Furuta. I'm forever scarred. The story is now embedded in my mind and I wish it wasn't. I woke up during my wrist surgery. I looked up to see my wrist cut open, although it did not hurt at all. I looked to my right side and the anesthesiologist said, "I'm assuming you want to go back to sleep." And before I could say yes, I passed out. Existentialism. I was happy in my closed little world. Now it's freaking hell. After losing a battle, apes tend to wank. Thanks cyanide. What my parents' genitalia look like. That my ex was cheating on me and broke up with me over text at 1 AM over text while I was asleep. Have some class, people, for frick's sake. Walt Disney never drew Mickey Mouse. That my grandfather is uncircumcised. He was in the hospital for a cancer scare and he says he has to pee and to give him a second. So everyone starts filing out of the room and my aunt goes, "Jones Soda 2003, stay here in case he needs some help." To which I replied with a, but being the good dude I helped him hold the pee bottle tight against his junk until he could get a good enough grip to hold it himself. Do I feel bad about helping an old man out? Absolutely not. Will I ever be able to get that memory out of my head? Absolutely not. Haha. Some friends of mine were killed in a car accident. It was so horrific that everyone assumed they died upon impact. I read the official report and found out the first responders reported they were still alive for a few minutes. I haven't told any of my other friends. Last year my boss at the PC repair shop I worked at died. I was told by the other workers that it was his heart and that it was a long-term condition that he had. I then foolishly googled him after that for an unrelated reason and the top result was that he was found by his wife the same Saturday that I worked with him with a bag held around his head. He killed himself and I was the last person to speak to him. I had no clue anything was wrong. That job cured my suicidal depression, but killed him instead. Frick depression. The condition my dad is in. I was on vacation and taking a trip with my mom a few months ago. She and I were bonding by opening up to each other about sex and relationships. Since I'm an adult and everything now, she mentions to me, "Your dad tends to have problems in the bedroom whenever he drinks whiskey. This is already TMI, but I just try to tuck this to the back of my mind. The second we get back from our vacation, and as I'm heading out the door of my parents' place, I hear my dad say to my mom, "I made sure I didn't have any whiskey tonight." Worst part, after 15 minutes of driving home, I realized I left something at my parents' place. As I turned around and headed back to their place, I made sure to call them and said I left something there. When I showed up, they seemed to be in such a great mood all of a sudden. I guess that I had given them just enough time. That when somebody is cremated, occasionally there is still moisture trapped in the muscles and tendons of the body. The heat of the fire can make these muscles and tendons expand/contract, and the body begins thrashing around in the chamber. I don't usually tell people about this, because I don't want to be the one who makes them imagine Granny convulsing, as if she were in pain, even though she's long been deceased. Full-grown pigs are smarter than 3-year-old humans. Not sure if I'll ever go vegan, but I'm done eating pork outside of special occasions. That my overweight lesbian boss got laid in her truck and she broke a cup holder in the process. That some people actually stand up to wipe. That a duck has a corkscrew shaped peen, and how ducks have sex with that corkscrew peen. Don't Google prolapsed rectum. No, seriously don't. I know you guys want to do it now, since I said not to, but you really don't want to know. Just don't. Your last moments in an brazen bull would be spent in claustrophobic, pitch black cacophony fighting the other occupants for who could get on top in a futile attempt to escape the singeing hot metal that is your casket. Fear of death. Fear of the dark. Fear of small spaces. Fear of burning. All in one agonizing event. To the pungent smell of burning hair and flesh, no less. After my parents died, I found about 70 pairs of ladies' underwear in my dad's workshop when I was cleaning it out.